and let's just risk it for the biscuit. It is just a YouTube video and just a small game after all. Let's go for face, because face is the place. Let's go for it. Go for the W. Opponent has a crit trigger, so we will need one trigger if our opponent has a PG. Can we see it? We see the draw trigger. That's good. Alright, will it happen? Hey yo, how's it going everyone? Entropy here today with another video. As you may have seen from the big news segment this last week, the most recent one, I am trying to do contests in order to give some incentive and motivation for you all to comment and let me know what your thoughts are. And so, as from last video, Peppermint Bailey got the answer for the question, and so out of the two decks, DDD-DOTE or Transglory, Peppermint Bailey has chosen to go with DDD-DOTE. So without further ado, let's begin with the deck profile for Kagero's premier deck, DDD-DOTE, Dauntless The End. So how am I building this deck? Okay, first of all, I've played a lot of this deck. I know it's only 4 days into set 11, 4 days into the new year, but I am confident that I have a lot of experience with this deck. I was at a tournament this last weekend, and this deck carried me hard. My second deck did not carry me as hard. So out of this video, look forward to the tournament recap coming soon. It's a lot of footage, so I will have to consider splitting into multiple parts. Hopefully 2 parts. I guess that also gives you kind of an idea of how I performed. You know, not too bad at the very least. But I guess going back to this list, we're of course playing Kagero. Kagero is #1 starter here, and it gets better into the future as well because opponents like Narukami or Kagero themselves, they gradually lose that the Forerunner snipes. So this card is, I'm sure everyone should know, Counter +1, retire this unit, get a grade 1 or last card from your deck to your hand. Very nice. You can search any grade 1 that you want, whether that's a booster or sentinel. So very flexible. Next up, we're playing 4 Seal Dragon Kersey. Kersey stays 1 place. If your opponent has a grade 2 unit, discard 1, draw 1. This is nice because it gives you a filter without having to rest this unit. But of course it's conditional, which comes not so handy sometimes, and that's why we have Dragon Monk Gojo. Gojo is a less conditional one, but you have to rest this unit to discard a card from your hand to draw 1. This card is nice. This is my primary first ride target because especially if you're going first, you're not going to attack anyway, so you can just rest and discard and draw. In terms of which one I value more, I honestly value Gojo more since you can use it multiple times as long as it's on the board. And most of the time, I mean, it works individually, right? It doesn't rely on the Kersey. In terms of the discard targets, generally speaking, you are going to be discarding Kerseys or other grade 1s as long as you don't need them, and grade 3s pieces that you already, you don't want, or you want to filter to search for primarily your grade 2 pieces because this deck, the grade 2s are really good, and of course you might come into handy with the ends or other sentinels that you want to filter into. Next, we're going to play 3 of the new Sentinels and 1 of the old ones. Why is that? You know, generally speaking, I'm an advocate of consistency. I'm a huge advocate of consistency. If you're not playing 4 ofs, you might as well, at most, then why are you playing that card in the first place? The reason why I'm actually playing 3 and 1 is because there are some decks that actually want to play crits, and there are a lot of decks in this meta that generate crit pressure. So whether that's decks like Gauntlet Buster, or decks like Salome, Jewel Knights, or decks like Transglory, for example, sometimes being able to proc that PG earlier on and protect yourself is very, very useful. Of course, because this is a break ride deck with Dauntless as a 4 of, you might rarely use this in play. But when you need it, when you're looking at your cards and you're like, I'm not going to break right anyways, might as well protect myself and get that extra turn to set up my next turn's play, that's when you search for Bari, and that's when it comes in handy. Of course, if you miss it, it's still fine. You still have 3 other PGs, and it's just there as an option and definitely used to psych your opponent out. Next up, we have 4 Berserk Dragons. I really like the Berserk Dragons. I know some people play 2, I know some people play 3, but I would generally recommend 3 or 4 copies of Berserk Dragon. This deck is Counterblast heavy, don't get me wrong. Berserk Dragon Counterblast 2, Dragonic Overlord Counterblast 3, Dragonic Overlord The End Counterblast 2, and DDD, our boy, Counterblast 1 now. So you have to be careful with Berserk Dragon's Counterblast, but it always comes in handy when you need to push to play more aggressively. It helps you eliminate an intercept. When you want to stall the game and control the board, you can get rid of opponent's grade 1 boosters. So in certain matchups, like against Ethics Plow, for example, you want to get rid of those toolkit boys. In certain matchups against Aquaforce, it gives you that option to get rid of the Basils, and so on and so forth. I think being able to choose how to get rid of units on your opponent's board sometimes is definitely very helpful. And also, it works with grade 2 or less, so if your opponent's playing greedy, some starters are very, very useful, and Berserk Dragon can just snipe it and punish your opponent for not using it earlier, or threaten your opponent to use it earlier when they don't need to, like in certain decks like Spike Brothers, where they might want to keep that 5k booster until when they really need that grade 1 or PG tech. Next, we're playing 3 Blockade Dragon. Honestly, I would rather play 4. I just don't have the last copy, so this is just how it is. It's a great card. Again, as we said before with Berserk Dragon's discussion, you can last a lot, and what's the solution to that? You kind of charge, right? You unflip the damage. So on hit, Vanguard kind of charge 1. It's great. It's nice. 4 strike-ins, you have to play 4. There's no reason not to play 4. It's honestly one of the core cards. This is your ideal ride target for grade 2. Of course, this can't attack, but when rolled upon, it has a semi-break ride kind of skill. Your Vanguard gets +5/+1 crit. So why is this card great? Because in Vanguard 0, your opponent can't choose to guard or not, so this gives you the opportunity to damage deny your opponent. Of course, having more damage in the early game is better because, well, then if you proc a heal, well, it just works better, right? And also it compensates for that one less attack with 5,000 and an extra critical. So you can just imagine, well, on your grade 2 turn, if you didn't ride strike in, you would have attacked anyways, and then on your grade 3 turn, you would have attacked anyways. Well, you're still dealing 2 damage. That's what striking gives you, but it has good synergy. It makes sure that your opponent isn't kind of managing their counterblast as well as they want to, and it also denies your opponent's options to use, their Linchus or their own Conros, for example, on your grade 2 turn. So that's definitely great. And then to Suisei. So Suisei is your generic 10k vanilla. Of course, you can play Nehalem if you want. You can play the Seal Dragon 10k if you want. Just choose the art you want. I like waifu, so there's that. Ideally, if you do want to run the optimal lineup, of course, I can't playtest it because I don't have the 4th Bellicosity, but I replaced one of the 10k's vanillas for the Bellicosity. That's just how it is. Next up, grade 3s, we're playing 4 Dragonic Overlord as the heal trigger. Of course, now that we have DDD and The End as our ideal first ride targets, Dragonic Overlord isn't that valuable. The cross ride number doesn't really bring that much to the table anymore. But Counterblast 3 plus 5k to attack 3 units in the front row in one turn is definitely really devastating because it gets the skill when this unit attacks its rear stand-it. So we know that the only way you can guard is, well, intercepts, grade 2s, you have sentinels or triggers, right? So in terms of the first one, intercepts, well, it slaps all the intercepts on your opponent's board, grade 2, or even grade 3s or grade 1s as well. So just retire 2, plus 1 hit attack to the face, plus 5k means you can hit over opponent's 1 damage check, assuming they don't hit a trigger. If you put a booster, it guarantees hit with 21k number in this deck. At least there's no 5k booster. Even if there's 5k booster, it still hits 21. So yeah. Definitely really nice, and especially during your end game, this is an option that you should always consider. Yes, I primarily filter this out because I value Dauntless The End plays, but Dragonic Overlord is still really, really good, primarily as a rearguard, but still definitely a very good card. Next, we're playing for The End. Everyone should know this and love this card. Cross Ride on Dragonic Overlord. You rarely do that, but still it does come in handy in some matchups, like against Aquaforce, for example. Prevents your opponent's Diamantes and Basil in getting numbers. In addition, when this unit attacks hits, Counterblast 2, Persona Blast to stand and draw 2 cards. So one of the problems with Kagero as a whole is you don't generate a lot of card advantage. And what The End gives you is that option to generate card advantage. You're discarding itself, you restand, so you get an extra attack and you get to draw 2 cards. So you're trading 1 card for 2 and you get an extra attack for Counterblast 2. So I think it's pretty good, definitely really good. So yeah. And then, of course, we're playing 4 Dauntless Drive Dragon. This is the star of the show, the new ace in the hole. When rolled upon, your Vanguard gets +10 and skill. At the end of the battle, this unit attack doesn't need to hit or miss anymore. Counterblast 1, discard 3 from your hand to stand and draw 2. So, of course, discarding 3 is expensive. As we said, from the end, you don't really generate a lot of card advantage. But especially in the end game, when you're just going to push for game, it's definitely really nice. And no pressure in using the skill. Honestly, some games, you just need to break right and hit those numbers. That +10k definitely does help you do. So, yeah. And in addition, during your turn, if you have more rearguards than your opponent, it gets +3, so it hits 14k numbers. With a 7k booster, it hits 21. And that's why I do want to play Berserk at 4, because it lets you play that retire more flexibly, since that is your one retire option. Of course, you have Dragonic Overlord, but that is, you know, on attack phase, right? So, in addition, the 3k actually does come in handy in hitting the numbers, because you do generally want the Gojo behind your Vanguard. So, that is just how it is. 2 last one-ofs is Blockade. Blockade actually won me a game and is very crucial. Ignore intercepts, so while Dragonic Overlord is great, while Berserk Dragon is great at clearing board, if you look at the count, right, you definitely do want to use your Conroll most often than not. That's Counterblast 1. Use once Berserk Dragon, Counterblast 2, and then, well, you don't have the Counterblast to use Dragonic Overlord anymore. Let's say you on flip 1, so you're back to 2, you Counterblast 3, Dragonic Overlord, right? Well, overall, your Counterblast is tight. You can't even pull off Dauntless Drive Dragon. So you really have to manage your Counterblast. Most times when I play the deck, I find that I only use once Dragonic Overlord or once Berserk Dragon. And so that's where Blockade comes in, right? Blockade is when your opponent's endgame, they set up the intercepts and you gotta seal the deal. You're on DDD. What do? Do you go The End or do you go Blockade? Go Blockade. Go Blockade. You ignore intercepts. You have four swings to your opponent's Vanguard if you use DDD, 3 swings if you don't, 20k numbers with a 7k booster to 27, and so that is just how you get those W's sometimes. In some lists in JP, you're not playing the 4 Dragonic Overlord, instead you're playing 4 Blockades. Definitely think after my my games with Blockade and how clutch it is sometimes, Blockade could be definitely more valuable. Of course, I didn't test that, but I think that both are really good. I think that most common list right now brings the 4 Dragonic Overlords, but Blockade is definitely a nice choice and definitely would, you know, love testing. If anyone has any ideas or have played with 4 Blockades instead of the 4 Dragonic Overlords, let me know down below and tell me how you feel. I feel like the 10k body does hurt it, but it's still a great option nonetheless. And lastly, 1 Heat Nail Salamander. Now, Heat Nail Salamander is an interesting card. I did try Bar, the AK Vanilla, and I'd say the Heat Nail Salamander 6k definitely does hinder this deck's performance. With that said, the Retire 1 is definitely nice. It's having a grade 1 rearguard in this meta, where there's a lot of combo heavy decks like Spike Brothers, Bad End Dragger, or there is decks like Eradicators that can't really generate that much card advantage as well. Trading, while at least, you know, the end lets you draw or do stuff, is definitely great. One of the issues with this card and why I don't really like it, honestly, is because you're returning this card to your deck, you're shuffling, right? So how trigger systems work in Zero is when you drive check a non-trigger, it goes to the bottom of the deck. When you drive check a trigger, it goes to the drop zone. What that means is when you return Heat Nail Salamander to your deck and you shuffle, just in terms of raw numbers, right? You're increasing the number of non-triggers in your deck by 1, and then you're increasing the likelihood of hitting a non-trigger. Why? Because, for example, you draw check 3, you whiff 3 triggers, right? So three cards, 3 non-triggers are at the bottom of the deck, and you have, for example, 30 cards in your deck, right? So 27 cards, you know, a few triggers there in the 27, and then 3 guaranteed non-triggers at the bottom. You use Heat Nail Salamander, you go back to the deck, you have 31 cards, so you have one more non-trigger, and then the 3 non-triggers that you guarantee that you will not hit on the top of the 27 cards are now shuffled, right? So you're mixing them again. So now your bottom 3 is no longer guaranteed to be non-trigger. So that is one of the weaknesses of Heat Nail Salamander. That is why cards like Gansalot or Jelly Beans is just superior, because, well, you are shuffling the deck, but at least you're returning a trigger, and generally speaking, you're smart enough to put it as a heal, right? So anyways, that's just a quick ramble. I hope that was educational. Personally, not a big fan of Heat Nail Salamander, but the retire one for free is definitely helpful. And one more thing is that this deck does run out of deck fast because you, well, if you proc the end more than once, sometimes you're filtering a lot most of the time, so you're going to run out of deck really fast. So the Heat Nail Salamander going back to the deck, you're able to kind of draw into it quite naturally sometimes, maybe twice even in a game, and you can pull it off and kind of replenish your deck. Shuffle those non-triggers to the top, middle, or even back to the bottom, doesn't matter, you're still shuffling it, so you won't really proc that many triggers sometimes. I know it sounds really ridiculous, you don't want to proc triggers, but when your deck count is low, that's definitely the case. So I guess, without further ado, with all that rambling said, let's go straight to a game. So here at this point, here's the question for this video. Would you like to see the Transglory deck list first or Tournament Part 1 first? All right, let me know down below, and whichever comment comes out first and tags the timestamp where I asked the question, I will go make that video first. Of course, all the content for the tournament is already there, so I just have to work on editing. I do want to give more production value into it. I will explain my thought process for the tournament, you know, why am I choosing these decks, what strategies and tactics did I bring onto the table. I think that will be really, really valuable. A lot of people will call me tryhard, but hey, when you're trying to win, this is what you gotta go for. You know, there's nothing wrong with tryharding, in my opinion, of course. Here, we are gonna ride the Kersey. We want to keep the Heat Nail Salamander for later. It's always a decent pick. Of course, we don't see a grade 3. I am tempted to keep the Kersey instead, but we don't have the Strike-In. Now, if I had the Strike-In and I saw that I do want to ride that card, I would definitely consider keeping the Kersey to filter out those grade 2s in order to get the grade 3 ride and guarantee that the Strike-In will come into play. With that said, another weakness of Kersey is that your opponent must have a grade 2 unit. So when you go first, it is VP Farmer. When you go first, generally speaking, Kersey can't be activated until your grade 3 turn, right? Because I ride first, you ride first, and then I ride, right? So in this case, for example, if I didn't have a grade 3 on this turn, I can't even use the Kersey to filter for the grade 3, if you understand what I'm saying. And so there isn't really value in me keeping that Kersey in our hand yet. So this is a VP Farmer. I think I said what I need to say, so I guess I'll meet you in the next fight soon. And we are back, so just clean up the VP Farmer, and let's go straight back into a proper fight. This time, hopefully, it isn't a VP Farmer again. And yeah, in terms of grade 3 mulligans, I know a lot of people concerned like, oh, am I playing DDD wrong? Why can I not pull off DDD? It sounds so expensive. And well, here's my 2 cents. You have to play conservatively. This is the control deck, not an aggro deck. It definitely takes more skill playing this deck than like decks like, I'd argue, Eradicators, like just from personal experience. I hope this is not another VP Farmer. One of the things is you need to know when you should go for the end and when you should go for DDD. In certain matchups, going straight into the end is actually pretty good. Pretty good. Especially, for example, here we have Strike-In. Going onto the end, if you do filter into another the end, it means that you're a 16k with, you know, maybe a 7k booster, maybe still the con roll, 21k. 16, deal 2 damage, your opponent's at, what, 20 if your opponent's a 10k grade 2, or 21 if their opponent's a grade 3. 11k grade 3. You restand, you're at 21k with a boost, you go again, you're dealing 4 damage in 1 turn, and this exact scenario you will see in the tournament gameplay as well. Playing it out, I choose to stick to the end instead of go for Dauntless, and then you deal damage, you go pick up the pace, and if you want to play aggressively, that's the way to go. Another VP Farmer, so I'll catch you all soon. So I guess here we go, round 3, round 4. Let's see how we do. So we're gonna play against a Gold Paladin. That's nice. Gold Paladin, I personally feel is quite rare around the meta these days, but never underestimate your opponent. We are not going to keep any PGs. Primarily the mulligan, generally speaking, I do want to guarantee that I have a grade 1, grade 2 in my hand, so I can ride up. Perfect ride is, if you're going first, Gojo into Striken into The End, or Dauntless. If you're going second, then maybe Kersey into Striken into Dauntless or The End. So your grade 2, generally you want Striken. For your grade 3, you generally want Dauntless or The End. And your grade 1, depending on if you're first or second, you want either filter units, whichever works best for that first turn ride. Opponents playing Liberators, nice to see. We do get that Striking, we do see that Dauntless, so that's nice. We do see that Kersey and Gojo. Of course, as we said just now, we do want to keep that that Kersey ride first, and then we can call it the Gojo later if we do need it. Let's just go face. Is the place. We hit that heal trigger. Unfortunately, it whiffs. Nothing much to it. Alright. So, one of the things about this matchup is opponent's grade 2 has Escrad on hit counterblast 1, call 1. So, it's not that big of a threat, but it does let your opponent +1. Opponent does play the Wingle Liberator, so on hit they can search for Blaster Blade Liberator. So if you have certain key cards that you want to proc, like, you know, Conroe, maybe you do that earlier, so, and do that before your opponent has 2 Counterblast. So opponent pulls out the Escrad, heals 1 damage, Counterblast 1 to +1, probably, good idea. Alright, gets the 12k attacker. Amazing, amazing. If they hit a trigger, that's 3 attacks in a row for this turn. Alright, that's a slight misplay, unless they... I mean, yeah, that's just a misplay, because if our opponent hits with Vanguard first, if they hit a heal, it would proc... If they hit a heal now, it would still pass as the attack, but the heal wouldn't proc, and they wouldn't have that 3-0 advantage. Instead, they would be at a 3-1 advantage. And that 1 extra damage does come into play at times. So... just a little advice here, if you're watching Matt, hope it helps. So we're gonna ride the Striken. We are gonna... I'm considering using the Berserk Dragon instead of the Conroe. And I guess we can just eliminate something and then hit the other 9k. So just gradually controlling the game for now. It's okay to be behind on damage. Of course, we already saw 1 heal, but being behind on damage means that your heals will be effective, unlike in the first drive check, for example. Opponent rides at 1 damage as well. Liberator is does really want their Limit Break 4, so pushing for damage too early might not be to your advantage at times, depending on the matchup. Bloberus is the break ride, so calls out the 9+3. And if you are a Liberator, you're missing the 9+3, this you can get in the V tournament shop, so that is something to note as well. So as we discussed, one of the good things about Kagero is you can control the damage your opponent has. So for example, we know that Bloberus wants that, you know, Limit Break 4 Counterblast 1. We know that if they boost with Wingle, they want that Counterblast 2. Of course, they didn't boost, so that's something to consider as well. Generally speaking, if you are playing Liberators and you are going to attack with Vanguard anyways, even if it doesn't hit numbers, you do want to boost with it, just because at the end of the attack, you can then choose if you want to use it or not. Well, now you can choose, you cannot choose at all if you want to proc it at all. So that's just something to consider. Opponent did show a surprise crit, so it's kind of scary. Let's discard a Dauntless. Berserk Dragon, I guess we can search for PG right here. New or old kind of does the same thing right here at this point, I think, unless we hit a heal trigger. I do want to go for the old one because our opponent is hitting surprise crits, so better safe than sorry, especially since we don't have a grade 3 to use that break ride anyways. Call that 10k body, and then we're going to control them at 3 damage so they don't break the break ride on turn 4. Hit the draw trigger, which is nice, always good. Draws into strike in, another 10k body for defense. Sees a new PG. Hit the draw trigger. So it's probably a 4-5-4 kind of lineup with 4 Gancelot, or maybe it's just like, you know, 2 or 3 Freeds, apologies. Because I do think that you should play, maybe this is the one of Blooberus, but who knows. Opponent's main phase. 7+3 Bruno. Blaster Blade Liberator, Camelast, get rid of this Suisse. Both 3 hits to face, very aggressive gameplay. Alright, 2 hits to face. They know I have a PG, so better conserve their troops. Hit the heal trigger. That's good, that's good. If our opponent hits a surprise crit, well, that PG is going to proc. So they need a trigger to pass. Will they see it? They see a heal trigger, but it doesn't proc, but of course there's still hits. We see another heal trigger. This is perfect. This is amazing. Lady Luck is on our side this time around. See a Blockade. There isn't really a reason to break ride yet. Break riding on 5 is really nice as well, so that is something to consider. We're just going to go attack. Let's call this out. Considering retiring the rear guard in order to have 2 attacks to the face when our opponent's at 5. Assuming we hit a trigger, of course. Let's do it. Let's see a trigger. Can we see a trigger? Wow. That was super greedy and it worked out fine. We're going to put it to the Berserk Dragon since we do have at least 3 more Counterblast to play with. Even if we miss with the Berserk Dragon. So we're just going to push to 4. We're going to break right. Ideally, we're going to break right next turn. See where we go from there. So one of the things that I probably should have reconsidered was putting the 7k booster behind the Vanguard to hit 21k numbers. And that's definitely something that I'd advise you to do. Don't play so impatiently like myself. And consider making those plays that you need to. Goes to Alfred, Counterblast 1, Superior Call, top 2. Very nice. Bruno and Fallon, so that's 2 grade 2s. That's like the ideal break ride units that you want to pull out. Calls out the Josephus, so at most 2 PGs in their hand right now. So rearguard into rearguard, Vanguard into rearguard maybe. Depending on their crit count, rearguard into rearguard is probably safer, especially if they're playing more than 1 crit. And this way they can threaten for PG. Again, you know, if you're gonna play the Wingo behind the Vanguard, might as well just boost with it. It's always an option when you hit by that off chance. So we see that new PG. So here, if we break ride, which I do think that it is a break ride turn. Even if we don't use the restand with Blockade, you still have multiple swings to face. And let's just risk it for the biscuit. It is just a YouTube video and just a small game after all. Let's go for face, because face is the place. go for it. Go for the W. Opponent hits a crit trigger, so we will need one trigger if our opponent has a PG. Can we see it? We see the draw trigger. That's good. Alright, will it happen? And swing! And that is game. So, I guess from that, what do we consider? We consider the Blockade, definitely, as we said from the deck overview explanation. You can consider the 4 Blockade build. It definitely does come in handy, as you can see from this fight. Unfortunately, I didn't really showcase the Dauntless The End synergy combos, or the Strike in the End combos. For that, you can anticipate for the tournament report. So, again, the question of this video is, comment down below, do you want to see the tournament report first or the Trans Glory deck profile first? Let me know down below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, subscribe, like the video if you liked it, and that will be all. Next video will be coming up in a day or two. So again, let me know as soon as possible, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.